Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. Memoirs of a Geisha. By Arthur Golden. Originally released in 1997, the memoirs of a 9-year-old girl who goes on to become the most famous geisha of her day are told in Memoirs of a Geisha. Chiyo's father was a fisherman, and she was his second daughter. Her mother was her father's second marriage, and he was extremely elderly. It became clear to their father that he couldn't look for his 2 children after their mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness. After being offered assistance with his kids by a wealthy neighbor, the man instead decides to sell them. Chiyo, the youngest daughter, becomes a geisha, while her older sister becomes a prostitute. Chiyo works as a maid at first before enrolling in geisha school. Among other things, she learns to dance and play music, as well as how to serve tea and entertain men. She discovers how to snag a man's attention with a single glance. Chiyo learns how to dress, walk, and speak properly. As part of their training, geishas are also taught how to be engaging conversationalists. The geisha world is quite competitive. Despite being one of the city's most renowned geisha, Hatsumomo sees Chiyo as a potential threat when she arrives. She was correct, of course. Chiyo rises to the position of top earner in their okiya during the course of the novel. During World War II, she served as the mistress of a general who was tasked with protecting their okiya from harm. The chairman, though, is the only person she has ever truly loved. When all is said and done, she has become the chairman's personal mistress. Chiyo, now Sayuri, begs him to move her to New York City after the birth of their kid, where she founded a tea house and became a huge success. Professor of Japanese history at New York University, who is the fictional author of Memoirs of a Geisha, conducted an interview with her. It begins with a translator's note in Memoirs. He meets Sayuri, a former geisha, and she asks him to write her story about her time in the Japanese samurai trade. The first chapter begins with a nod to Charles Dickens. What happened on that afternoon? It was the best and the worst time of my life. This is the story Sayuri is telling. She claims that she was not destined to be a geisha. She was the daughter of a fisherman who lived in a little town on the coast of Japan. A neighbor takes in Chiyo, who will become Sayuri, and Satsu, who will become Sayuri's older sister. When Mr. Tanaka picks up the sisters, he brings them to be inspected by an elderly woman. It's Satsu's 15th birthday. When Mr. Tanaka has gone, an older lady comes over to the girl and checks her for sex. He is assured that the girls are intact when he returns, and she points out that the oldest is difficult to control, but the youngest is simpler to handle and more attractive at 9 years old. Mr. Tanaka thanked her and took the girls to visit his daughter, Kuniko, at his house. As a child, Chiyo dreamed of being adopted by Mr. Tanaka and having Kuniko as a sibling. Chiyo and Kuniko leave that night under cover of darkness. In a geisha home, they find Mr. Tanaka on the following day. Chiyo and Satsu are sent home, but soon after an assistant from Mr. Tanaka's office appears. But he doesn't take them to Tanaka. A train takes them to see the old woman, instead. The elderly woman is seated next to a man named Beku on the train. It is a lie he tells them in order to fix their appearance. A taxi takes them to the suburb of Gion in Kyoto when the train lands in the Japanese capital. There is a large house where Chiyo is dropped off, but her sister is transported somewhere else. A glamorously attractive woman appears as soon as the door to Chiyo's dwelling opens. This girl's full name is Hatsumomo. As the most well-known geisha in Gion, her name alone commands respect. She is a snobbish and mean-spirited person. Despite her outward beauty, she harbors a terrible and twisted soul. Hatsumomo has a strong disdain for Chiyo and refers to her as rubbish out of the gate. Chiyo is taken inside by an elderly woman. Known as Auntie, she was a geisha in her younger years. They're in Inokia. The building is a geisha training school. A new roommate and training partner is introduced to Chiyo. Pumpkin is the girl's pet name. She will one day become a geisha apprentice. Mother and Granny are in charge of the okiya, which is run by a mother and grandmother. Granny adopted Mother and Auntie many years ago, despite the fact that they are not biologically related. As time passes, Chiyo comes to know that Granny is a vicious old woman who abuses her grandchildren, and that Mother is no better. To make her life easier, Chiyo rapidly learns to obey. Chiyo feels compelled to study the art of the geisha. She studies music, dance, and the art of the tea ceremony. However, Chiyo must first do household chores around the okiya before she can begin her formal education. Hatsumomo's room has to be cleaned. Hatsumomo tells Chiyo not to touch her cosmetics since she's dirty in the midst of a chaotic living room. Chiyo's mother then slaps her. Hatsumomo gets away with a lot as a well-known geisha. Chio and Pumpkin begin their school careers together the first day of studies. It's pointless to try to save Pumpkin. She is a lousy dancer and a shamisen player, in addition to subsisting solely on the food she picks up off the ground. It is a guitar made in Japan. Satsu, Chio's sister, is nowhere to be seen at the school. Chio is taken to the registry office in Gion by Hatsumomo after school. During the registration process, Chio asks Awajiami if he has seen her sister, and Awajiami confirms. He rejects the notion. In Hatsumomo's opinion, Chio's question was ill-advised. Chio is dressed in a kimono as soon as they arrive at their destination. She must observe Hatsumomo put on the geisha's heavy makeup. Mr. Beku arrives to help Hatsumomo into her gown after the makeup has been applied. With the help of her obi, she's in trouble. It is a rope belt that is fastened at the back. Hatsumomo, after all the effort, is breathtaking. It is Chio's responsibility to take care of the household chores as she is the youngest member of the family. Hatsumomo, who is abusive to her, is also a must for her to go to school with. Even when she brings her partner to Tokyo, she must protect Hatsumomo's privacy. To be clear, Hatsumomo isn't allowed to date. Hatsumomo threatens Chio by revealing the location of her sister. To get Satsu, she tells Chio she must follow her every command. In order to find out where Chio's sister is hiding, Hatsumomo has her make the young woman to face a kimono. Hatsumomo is well aware of the consequences of her actions. Hatsumomo's main competition, Mama, wears this kimono. Hatsumomo gives the kimono back to Mama after having Chio paint it. Mama informs her mother about the kimono the next day, and Hatsumomo blames Chio. She claims to have attempted to stop the young lady. Chio's mother adds the kimono's cost to her daughter's bill. As a geisha, she'll have to pay for her lodgings at the Okiya with the money she'll make. To find out where her sister has gone, Chiyoko confronted Hatsumomo and demanded an answer from her. Satsu is in a joyful ya, according to her. Chio has no idea what you're talking about. Chio takes advantage of the opportunity to find her sister when she has to perform an errand for Hatsumomo. Women who tie their obis in the front or are prostitutes populate the building where Chio's sister is staying. Satu has joined the ranks of the prostitution industry as well. On Tuesday night, Satu wants Chio to meet her at her house so that they can flee together. When Chio returns to the Okiya, Hatsumomo captures her and takes her back to the house. Instead of handing her up to the authorities, she provides her money so that she can flee. She wishes she never had to see Chio again. Hatsumomo, on the other hand, can't let it go and informs mother that Chio stole her emerald brooch and sold it. Chio's mother finds the money and takes it from her. She slaps Hatsumomo, though, because she is aware of her relationship with him. A benefactor who the geisha slept with, Mama invites Sayuri to meet her after school one day. The new geisha has caught the attention of the Baron, who is much taken by her. The apprentice prize goes to Pumpkin, and Mama tells Sayuri that she has a plan in place. Hatsumomo will not be aware of the sumo wrestling competition that the two of them will attend. Nobu Toshikazu, a well-to-do businessman, and the chairman will both be in attendance. After a long time, Sayuri is overjoyed to see the chairman once more. To Nobu and Chairman Iwamura, Mama introduces Sayuri. Smitten with the chairman, Sayuri attempts to pour tea out of an empty pot. All over his body, Nobu is scarred by burns, and he's also missing one arm. Hatsumomo shows up. It amuses her to see Mama and Sayuri out with the two men, as she frequently makes fun of Nobu for his conceit. Before Hatsumomo can ruin the night with her sharp, vicious tongue, Sayuri resolves to turn the charm on at Nobu. Chairman Iwamura has practically become a fetish for Sayuri. She keeps track of all the publications that reference him. She discovers that even though he built the Iwamura Electric, he owes Nobu an enormous amount that he can never pay back. Mama has a strategy in mind. The first step is to dress Sayuri in an outdated dress and cut her leg so badly that she needs medical attention. Mama takes Sayuri for a spin while they're out to show her off. She takes her to see Uchita-san, a local artist. Mama dreams of painting Sayuri one day. Sayuri frequently entertains Nobu and the chairman. She also sees the doctor, till he becomes enraged and accuses her of lying to him, which she denies. Finally, she inquires about Mama's plans. In order to raise the price of her mizuage, or virginity, Mama tells her. Because Hatsumomo revealed to the doctor that she was no longer a virgin, the doctor became enraged. Mama tells the doctor that Hatsumomo's jealousy prompted her to fabricate the story. Sayuri and Mama go to the Baron's mansion for a celebration. She is invited to another party by the Baron, But Mama has turned it down because her surgery is scheduled for the same day as her party with him. Instead of asking her about her abortion, Baron turns to Sayuri. Mama warns her to be cautious of the Baron because she must attend. He could try to snatch her virginity from her. Sayuri joins in on the festivities, making his way through the crowd with the males. On top of that, she spends time with Nobu and the chairman. The Baron tells Sayuri that he has a present for her once everyone else has gone. However, she cautiously joins him in the bedroom. He wraps her in a kimono there. He first removes her kimono, then replaces it with the other. She is not raped by him. After she removes her own kimono and heads out, she takes the new one along. Sayuri passes a banner advertising the dance she will be performing in, Dances of the Old Capital, on her way home. The poster features her face because she will appear in the film. The Morning Sun on the Waves is the name of the dance she performs. Despite the presence of the chairman and Mr. Nobu, she performs flawlessly. Nobu sends Sayuri a ruby a week before the bidding for her virginity begins so she can pay off her debts to Mother. Mother consults a doctor the day before the auction to confirm her virginity. Sayuri will be adopted instead of Pumpkin, according to her mother. Hatsumomo is on edge. Sayuri begs Mom to let her take them both in since she feels horrible for Pumpkin. Everyone expected the doctor and Nobu to go head-to-head in the bidding, but it's actually the Baron and the doctor. The doctor comes out on top, and he does it at an all-time high price. Sayuri is officially adopted by her mother the following week. Nita Sayuri is now her full name. In July 1935, Sayuri undergoes her first sex experience. In a vial, the doctor maintains a small amount of her virginal blood. The vial has her name misspelled on it. She returns to her normal routine after that. Partying with the chairman and Nobu is a common occurrence in her social calendar. The chairman cancels her invitation to one of the parties since Nobu is ill and unable to attend. As a result, Sayuri is afraid that the chairman disapproves of her. Sayuri has been an apprentice geisha for 2 years now, and it's time for her to become a full-fledged geisha. Her collar will no longer be red, but white, at the ceremony known as changing the collar. For her, the bidding has begun once more. Dana, guardian, is what she needs. He would be the only one with access to her at all times. Even though everyone expects Nobu to be her Dana, she still aspires for the chairman to be hers. Love has nothing to do with it, Mama tells Sayuri. To be honest, I think Nobu would make an excellent Dana. As a result of their bet, Mama receives cash from Mother. Despite her reluctance to pay, Mama suggests that General Totori Junosuke would be a suitable Dana for her mother. They may need him as an ally for their Okiya if and when conflict breaks out. Even though Sayuri continues to entertain at Nobu's events, he appears enraged. Sayuri's Dana, the general, wins the bid. She's required to visit him twice a week at a minimum. She runs into the chairman one night. The last time she saw Nobu was a long time ago, she informs him. He tells her where he is and that she should try to mend their relationship, which she accepts. She discovers Nobu outside a tea house one night. The general is now her Dana, and he tells her he is enraged about it. Despite her repeated assurances that it was not her fault and that she had no option, he is still enraged. Like a frustrated child who is denied the gift he desires. Sayuri has made more money than Hatsumomo and Pumpkin combined in the last 6 months. As a result, she is now entitled to the larger bedroom. As she is evicting Hatsumomo and Pumpkin from the room, she accidentally drops Sayuri's journal, which is where Hatsumomo discovers it. Geisha aren't supposed to discuss about their experiences, thus writing about them would be inappropriate. To demonstrate her mother, Hatsumomo intends to do so. The emerald brooch Hatsumomo accused Sayuri of stealing is found in her notebook. Hatsumomo is made to pay back the money Sayuri was compelled to pay by her mother, who hands the brooch onto her. Stories begin to circulate that Hatsumomo is losing her mind because of Mama's actions. Hatsumomo verifies the rumors as she gets into a confrontation with an actor. Hatsumomo is exiled from the Okiya by her mother. Sayuri will never see her again. Because of the general, Kyoto's Okiya suffers less damage during World War II. After he is taken into custody, however, the women of the town will have to fight just like everyone else. As a result, they must cultivate their own food and even wear the same underpants for days at a time. When the government decides to shut down the geisha area, they will be cut off from the rest of Tokyo. The tea houses decide to host one final party before shutting down for the last time. Sayuri and Nobu meet during a party. He expresses his desire to be of assistance to her. He knows someone who will take her in as a friend's roommate. Instead of kimonos, she can make parachutes and earn a living. Agreeing with the sentiment, Sayuri worries whether she will ever return. Sayuri learns of the death toll in Kyoto as she is busy sewing parachutes for her friends. The Baron is one of the people she mentions. He shot himself in the head. Mama, on the other hand, is still breathing. Time ebbs and flows with battle. He finds her after the war, and they get married. He'd want to see her return to Kyoto in the Gion district. She complies, thinking that her mother will accept her as a geisha once again. After promising to trade it for gems one day, Nobu presents her with a chunk of concrete. Mother receives a letter from Sayuri, and auntie is sent to bring her back. She's as busy as a geisha with all the American soldiers around. Sato, the new deputy minister, joins Nobu at a party. He and Sayuri are throwing another party in order to impress the minister. This time, there will be more geishas in attendance. When Sayuri returns, she brings Mama and Pumpkin with her, the latter of whom has turned prostitute since the war. Sayuri notes that the chairman is still gorgeous when he arrives at the party. In spite of Pumpkin's harsh behavior, the minister has a soft spot for her. He continues to become drunk, but he appears to be having a good time. The minister, Nobu, and the chairman's chairman continue to be entertained by geishas as time goes on. Due to the upcoming performance of the dances of Old Capital, Sayuri and Mama are putting in a lot of practice time. As usual, Nobu is irate and the minister is inebriated when Sayuri arrives home one night. Nobu tells Sayuri that the minister wants to be her Dana after the minister has left. Due to his efforts throughout the war, Nobu feels obligated to repay the man. When he asks, she says she'll allow him to become her Dana. Because he doesn't want her to become the type of woman who does that, this angers him greatly. Getting the concrete he handed her is his order. She's afraid he'll turn into her Dana, and that's something she really doesn't want. Sayuri devises a method to convince Nobu that she isn't interested in him. She begs Pumpkin to take Nobu to an antique theater at a gathering on an island. She wants him to catch her having sex with the minister, and she has a plan for it. Pumpkin, on the other hand, brings the chairman. Pumpkin brought the wrong man on purpose, for retribution, when Sayuri confronts her later. Instead of Sayuri, she preferred that mother adopt her. She receives a letter from Nobu's office a few days later. A tea house is on the itinerary. When she sees the chairman, she's taken aback. It was Nobu's desire for her that made him give up his feelings for her, he explains. When Nobu found out she'd had an affair with the minister, she decided he no longer wanted her. Now, the chairman is able to accompany her. The chairman takes on the role of her mother. Her marriage to another man prevents him from getting married, but he takes her on business trips to New York with him. She's pregnant with their child and wants to live in New York permanently, so the chairman agrees to let her go there. Opens tea house and moves to Waldorf Tower. She rises to the top of her field. A whopping 40 years had passed by the time the story comes to a close. There are no longer any geisha. Everyone she knew, including the chairman and Nobu, had died by this point. She claims, however, that they are all alive and well in her heart. Nita Sayuri, Sakamoto Chiyo, the youngest daughter of a fisherman in a small village. A geisha house takes her in when she is 9 years old, while her older sister is a prostitute. Chiyo begins her career as a maid before enrolling in a geisha training program. One of the other geisha girls bullies her, but she takes little steps to avenge herself. In an attempt to flee with her sister, Chiyo falls from the roof and breaks her arm. Chiyo has a long way to go before she can repay the mother of the house for the care she received and the doctor she saw. This means she can repay her debts and get out of her current situation by working as a geisha. So when it's time for mother to part with her virginity, she bids the highest price possible. As a result, she is taken in by an older geisha and renamed Sayuri. Her name changes to Through Sayuri after she is adopted by mother. After that, she obtains a fortune and ensures the protection of her home by appointing a general as her Dana, head of household. He stands by her side, and she is the one woman he desires. She moves into the country after the arrest of the general. Sayuri earns her keep by sewing parachutes. She returns to her previous profession as a geisha after the war. When both the Minister of Finance and Nobu, another man she doesn't want, express interest in becoming her Dana, she devises a ruse to keep them both away from her. As a result of this, the chairman, whom she has always desired, becomes her daddy. She is his mistress since he has a wife. A tea house in New York City is her life's work after she gives birth, and she has no regrets about convincing him to relocate her there. She narrates her narrative to the narrator, A fake New York University professor of Japanese history named Jacob Hahuis, 40 years after moving. Mama, Sayuri's mentor. She is the city's second-best geisha. She accepts the chairman's request to train Sayuri. Sayuri's accomplishments have made her proud. As her Dana, the Baron forbids her from having children and commands her to do so immediately if she becomes pregnant. This breaks her heart, but because she is pessimistic, she doesn't let it bother her. Hatsumomo, the head geisha of the Nita Okiya. She's a shrew and a liar. Because she knows Sayuri will succeed her as chief geisha, she bullies and despises her. Hatsumomo loses money owing to her unstable behavior, so Mama seeks to remove her. Chairman Iwamura Ken, the one true love of Sayuri. He first sees her when she is a young girl and arrives at the geisha house. Mama will train her to be a geisha and safeguard her as a result of his efforts. When she finishes training, he wants her, but he must give her to a buddy to whom he is indebted. After a while, she becomes his mistress, and he moves her and their unborn kid to New York City. But he's older than her, and he's a wonderful guy. Toshikazu Nobu, he longs for Sayuri, but he can't get his hands on her. She has feelings for him, but she keeps her distance from him due to his combat wounds. One of his arms has been amputated and his skin is severely damaged. When he learns she had an affair with the minister, he quickly distances himself from her. Pumpkin, she is also a geisha who is training with Sayuri. She isn't as attractive as the other girls, and her IQ is also poor. She has problems learning to dance, sing, and do all the other things geishas are expected to do. Nonetheless, Pumpkin retaliates against Sayuri by attempting to sabotage her connection with the chairman. Author Arthur Golden was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in 1956 and is the father of Memoirs of a Geisha. He comes from a long line of Oaks Sulzbergers. The New York Times is owned by the Oaks Sulzberger family. The publisher's grandpa was in charge from 1935 to 1961. This was the most productive period for the newspaper. Arthur Golden earned a degree in art history with a concentration in Japanese art from Harvard University. The next year, he graduated from Columbia University with a master's degree in Japanese history. He also acquired Mandarin during this time. Peking University in Beijing, China was the next stop on Arthur's trip to Asia. After that, he went to work in Tokyo for a period of time. When Arthur returned to the United States, he enrolled in Boston University's MA in English program. In Brookline, Massachusetts, Arthur now resides. Of course, Arthur's book was on the Japanese world, since it was his favorite subject. In 1997, Arthur Golden published Memoirs of a Geisha, a book he worked on for 6 years. 3 times he changed the point of view of the book he wrote. In the book, Arthur relied on Mineko Iwasaki as a source. Sayuri takes her cues from this former geisha. Mineko, a well-to-do Japanese businesswoman, was Japan's most famous and notable geisha. Mineko entertained royalty and celebrities throughout her tenure as a geisha, including the Queen and Prince Charles. When she was just an apprentice, she was already the heir apparent to her okiya and had retired at the ripe old age of 29. The geisha tradition began to fade after 70 other geisha followed her lead and retired, contrary to her expectations that retirement would increase emphasis on education for young ladies. However, the changes that Mineko and the other geisha in the Gion area had hoped would take place never materialized. Sayuri takes her cues from this former geisha. Mineko, a well-to-do Japanese businesswoman, was Japan's most famous and notable geisha. Mineko entertained royalty and celebrities throughout her tenure as a geisha, including the Queen and Prince Charles. When she was just an apprentice, she was already the heir apparent to her okiya and had retired at the ripe old age of 29. The geisha tradition began to fade after 70 other geisha followed her lead and retired, contrary to her expectations that retirement would increase emphasis on education for young ladies. However, the changes that Mineko and the other geisha in the Gion area had hoped would take place never materialized. The geisha tradition began to fade after 70 other geisha followed her lead and retired, contrary to her expectations that retirement would increase emphasis on education for young ladies. However, the changes that Mineko and the other geisha in the Gion area had hoped would take place never materialized. Mineko Iwasaki filed a lawsuit against Arthur Golden and his publisher after the Japanese translation of Memoirs of a Geisha was published. In order to keep her safe, Arthur had vowed not to reveal any names. For as long as she can remember, the names and stories of her ancestors are hers to retain. Mineko received death threats for breaking the geisha rule of silence since he acknowledged her in the acknowledgement section of the book. As a result of her settlement with his publishers, the truths and names of those involved have never been established. Her autobiography, Geisha of Guion, was written later in life. Arthur Golden's memoir, Memoirs of a Geisha, focused too much emphasis on sexuality, and did not include geisha's traditional role in Japanese culture. Golden hasn't published anything since Memoirs of a Geisha, which was published in 1989. We hope that he is hard at work on a follow-up novel that will be just as enjoyable as this one. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.